You just have to know that it is up to you. No one else is going to save you. Not a podcast, not a brilliant financial advisor, not your best friend, not an inheritance, nothing. You will save yourself.
Welcome to the podcast, Tracy.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to kind of get a lot of these conversations I have with amazing women that I come into contact with for Bad Academy out into the public.
Yes.
We teach a lot of workshops, but I think some of the storytelling behind how my instructors came to be who they are today are just really too important to not share. So I'm excited to have you on today to kind of talk about this. We've known each other for years now.
It could be a third or fourth lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I know you I don't know really well. I'm sure there's a lot of things I don't know about you, but we've talked a lot. And I just really want to share your story with everybody. So I'm just going to start from the very beginning. Did you always know that you wanted to be a financial advisor?
Oh, good grief, no. You don't grow up in a small farming town as a little girl being told that you can be a financial advisor or a doctor or maybe a brain surgeon. No, you're a nurse, you're a teacher, like a secretary if you're really lucky, all in preparation to be a mommy. So no, it was never in the cards. And I think if I hadn't just had so much personal angst around money, if it hadn't infused almost every single piece of my life, all the way through my adulthood, I never would have been as interested in it. But it just seems to be money is just like this energy, and it's just through everything, right? When you're poor in school, I remember my friend and I splitting a big whopper on our last day. We had no money left from our school loans. I don't even think that happens to kids today, does it? Do they get that hungry? We were really hungry. And so, poverty was just part of my life. It was almost an expectation. You just worked really hard. So it wasn't until, sort of midlife that I went, gosh, it looks like some people are doing a little bit better than surviving. Who are they? Who are these people? And what are they doing to make this happen? I became very curious about the whole thing because it wasn't in any conversations other than we don't have enough money for this. Or you need to get a second job. Like that's the conversations that occurred in my family. So
totally. Like I grew up in like a immigrant family. So, from the beginning, it was just like you're saying, like poverty or, money problems were just ingrained in our sort of lifestyle.
Yes.
And so you never really even gave it a second thought. So if that was such a kind of core part of your upbringing as a child, what kind of sparked that inspiration in you to, I guess, like you're saying that you saw people that were doing better and you wanted to know how, but like what was the moment?
We probably have to back the bus up a little bit to, I was doing my doctoral coursework in child psychology at UBC. And I was working in the downtown east side as an infant development consultant with my handy little bag, traveling from family to family, doing developmental assessments and feeling really good about myself. And then 3 babies on my caseload died. And it happened in a very short period of time. And it was absolutely appalling to me that, in my opinion, 2 out of the 3 was because they were poor. And that if they'd been born and raised 6, this is in Vancouver, BC. We're not talking like a third world country in Vancouver. We're talking 6 blocks away in Vancouver. Those babies would still be alive. So I had a full-blown crisis, a crisis of meaning, a crisis of spirit. And I was like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life just being a check mark in somebody's system. Oh, good, we've got the child development specialist in the downtown east side, systemic poverty, check. And then the city moves on to something else. So it really thrust me into some deep questioning about myself, about my purpose, about who I was and how I wanted to spend my energy in the world. And basically the question that popped out for me in sharp relief is, why are some people rich and some people poor? And to be honest, this many years later, I still wake up and I'm still working on that same question.
Totally.
It's a fascinating question, and it changes through time. So then I was like, what's the easiest way for me to start to understand money? So I went in through sales and marketing and went into a business. And then finally, after I sold my own business, I was back to the same question again, which is like, okay, this money thing is still disturbing. I'm still not quite understanding why they're rich there and these people here are still working so hard and not getting ahead. So I started reading up on books, and then I approached a financial advisory firm. I was living in the U.S. then, and I basically just walked into the branch manager's office of a financial advisory firm and introduced myself and said, I'm tired of. I was working in play equipment. My business was play equipment. I'm tired of talking about swings and seesaws. The only thing I'm interested in is money. Do you have any career opportunities? And it's kind of weird, right? Apparently. I learned later.
How old are you?
40.
At that time, you were 40?
Maybe 38, 37.
I feel like
somewhere in there.
A lot of people in my community are terrified of career changes. Do you remember how you felt in that moment? Like being like, I need to change?
Well, I had dropped the kids off for carpool. I dashed across the city really fast, gone into the back of my closet. I had this old black suit. It was quite shiny, but didn't matter. It was the proper thing. Got in my car, drove into the place, hid amongst the other cars, went up hoping I wouldn't see anybody that I knew to ask this question. Because I thought, as long as I can do this undetected, something about, like, if I can stay invisible while I do this really brave thing, then no matter what happens, I'll be okay. So that's what made me brave, was who's going to know? Who's going to know?
Yeah, just ask.
Just, now I'm like, yeah, just ask.
Ask.
I learned. And it set off a whole chain of events because it was an unusual thing for a branch manager to be approached by somebody that way. I became a bit of an icon of certain things in that company, and I got trained. And that was really a big deal because in the U.S., this was one of the biggest, most successful financial advisory firms, and I really got a lot of amazing training, and they were concentrating on women in wealth at that time. So I got even specialized training. I was very fortunate.
Wow.
Just the doors sort of flew open for me.
That's amazing.
Right place, right time, just enough courage to make it all happen.
So I just want to point out the fact that you had a really unusual sort of path to what your career is now. How do you feel like your past as a child psychologist has informed your current role as a financial advisor? Do you still draw from your past experiences?
Yes, every minute. Hey, it's all psychology. It's not math. There's nothing about money. There's nothing about the capital markets. Everybody wants to turn it into a chart or a graph. But what it is actually large amounts of human behavior, all acting as a group. And the group all go blah, 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 and they fall off the cliff, or they all climb back up the cliff. And it's all massive amounts. And I think to some degree, we're just quantifying things numerically to just try to explain in a masculine paradigm what is really just humans acting in groups.
Yes.
So yes, I use it every day. and individually, it's all psychology. And I'm not denigrating it or putting it down. Psychology is extraordinarily complex. But yes, it's all energy.
But it's like human emotion. I think what we get wrong about finance a lot of the times is that, well, you say the capital markets. First of all, can you explain exactly what you mean by capital markets in case there's people listening that don't know what that means?
So the capital markets are basically the buying and selling mechanisms that we have at a large, highly regulated level that allow investors to make choices about what companies they believe in and buy little pieces of them, essentially.
Right.
And the whole marketplace is about buying and selling securities. Companies is what it's called. It can also be loaning them money in the fixed income. But the market is a place where things are bought and sold that keep the economy going because they're basically they're either capitalizing, hence the capital markets, capitalizing worthy firms that have solutions that the collective believe are worthwhile and worth investing in, or they don't. And they say, we don't need typewriters anymore. So the collective intelligence stops investing in those companies because they no longer have a solution that's appropriate for the masses.
Yeah. And so because of that, I mean, if you think about it, it's so emotional. Like everything about the market is actually emotional because it's you're going based off of how people feel about things or what is popular at the moment or what people are prioritizing. And I think that's what scares a lot of women specifically out of investing or out of understanding things about finance because they just assume that it's numbers and graphs and things that they can't understand. But in reality, it's no, it's just people being people.
Or we do understand and we do know that it's about feelings and we have a really healthy respect for how complicated feelings are. So we stand back with full and complete intelligence and awareness about what's really going on, where the people that are in there are actually ignorant, and that allows them to play in there.
So true.
Because they really don't know. They think it's numbers, but it's really not. That's another way that we could look at it.
In your experience, how different do men and women think about money?
It's night and day.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there aren't, I also am really careful. You and I are both super careful about making mass generalizations about anything.
Of course.
Age, gender, sexuality. I'm really careful about it.
Sure.
Because we can't just say all people. I heard somebody say, well, Canadians are. And I'm like, I can't say that. In general, around the world, in general, women are brought up similarly to be nurturers, birth givers, mothers, and beautiful. And pretty much around the world, the general perspective is this is what constitutes womanhood and a good woman. It's really rare for me to come across a woman who says, from the time I was at my mother's knee, she taught me asset allocation and how to improve my risk tolerance.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Would be nice.
I fantasize about it. Other people count sheep when they're trying to sleep. I'm like, what if?
What if Barbie Land was just financial education?
Yes, exactly. No, it's so different, and that was a discussion I had earlier this morning. It's so layered. It's and I'm always, I think it's my job to try to understand it and understand all the different and often ironic, contradictory, complex dynamics that are happening. But I also don't want to overcomplicate things because I do believe at the end of the day, you have complete authority and agency over your financial life, and I have complete authority and agency over mine. And regardless of the story or wherever I came from, my job is to go, okay, there you are, sweetie. I know your story. And I look at my little girl and I just go, I know, hon, I know this is hard for you, but we can do this because we have to, because we really like being millionaires. Okay. And so you allow it, but then you're like, now my job is to do this, regardless of what I've come from, regardless of the contradictory feedback, because it's not considered very sexy, really, for a woman to be super rich. Or if it is, it's sexy for her to be rich, but it's not sexy for her to be the person she has to be to get there.
Powerful.
Pretty much.
Right. You mentioned a study to me in the past about the way that girls and boys are brought up Could you tell our listeners about that?
Well, there was a huge study that was done in Great Britain, and it wasn't that long ago, 3 or 4 years ago. It was like thousands of kids, and they told everybody that this was a study investigating the use of toys. But what they really did was dress up little boys in pink and little girls in blue. And then they put toys out, and they had the subjects come in and just simply play with the children. And they watched as each time somebody came in, they looked at the pink dress and they picked certain toys and then interacted with that child in a certain way. And that over and over, when the researchers would come in and say, actually, this is Genevieve, and it would be somebody who was, dressed in blue, they would say things like, oh, no, I would never have thrown her up that high. Oh, I would never have got her that truck. I would have never have held her like that. Over and over and over and over again, just by the simple marker of what color clothes those babies were dressed in. It said, what it did was it teased out the unconscious, sometimes conscious, things, biases that we use in every interaction from the time a child is born to make sure that they behave this way and are socialized this way versus socialized that way. I mean, I'm just like, I know this is pink, but it's okay. We can have pink. But our babies, no, we can't put our babies in pink. You let kids choose their colors later on. Doesn't matter. But we've socialized ourselves to such a degree. It's really hard. Like I'm still working on some of the things. I just had that whole hip hop experience, and I've had to unpack this thing at my age. Like, what is my problem here? Why was I crying about this? What
Okay, well, we
me?
need to tell everybody about this. First of all, everyone should know that Tracy takes a hip hop class here in Vancouver. Hip hop dance.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
And I started hip hop when I was it was 20 years ago when I was on strike with my family, and I refused to keep making dinner. And so I had to drive around the city for a couple hours at night, every night, because I wouldn't do it anymore.
You're like, I'm just going to be completely absent. I don't even want to be home.
No, that's the only way to do it.
Oh my gosh.
And it was dark and lonely in the streets of Olympia, Washington at the time. And the only thing that was open was a studio, and I saw people dancing in it. And then after the second week, I went in, I poked my nose in, and the woman said, come in. I came in. I said, what is this? She said, this is a hip hop class. And so I was on strike with my family, and that was the first time that I started doing hip hop, and she was an amazing teacher. Well, recently I was asked by BC Business I was interviewed in their Weekend Warrior section about my hip hop and its role, as a business owner, a successful business owner. And I do use dance as a way of blowing off steam. And I went into this, I was very eloquent about the arrhythmia and how irregularity is a really good antidote to all that blah, blah, all this. And it was great while I was being interviewed. And at the end of the interview, the writer, she said, so, now we need to set up the photo shoot. And I went, the what? She said, the photo shoot. I said, of what? Of you doing hip hop. You're going to photograph and video. You're going to photograph and video me doing hip hop. No. I said, you can take a photograph of me, but no, this is part of the thing. And it's like the people that were on that was a Zoom, 3 wonderful women, young. I'm like, oh, I'm in such a terrible position here because I cannot wuss out on these people. I'm a bad role model. I had so many things going on in my head. And then I was like, they said, we aren't going to make you look ridiculous. I said, there's really no other thing for me to be dancing by myself. Can I have my teacher? Can I be in my class? No, it's too many disclaimers. We have to do it we have to do it on your own. And I kept saying no, and they just said, please. And I was like, okay. So I lost sleep. Honestly, I lost sleep. I had to do extra meditation. This thing was freaking me right out. And it was as bad as I expected. I had to get all hooped up as a hip hop dancer at the Harbor Dance Theater on Granville in a studio by myself with pink and blue lights, 3 people video and photographing me while I do hip hop by myself. Okay? Like, holy cow. It was It was so stressful for me. I just couldn't. And every time afterwards that I talked about it, I got all emotional. Like it really did choke me up. And it really was one of the most difficult things. And you go like, why? You dance every week. No, there's something about dancing by yourself. And like hip hop's supposed to be for like 19-year-old boys, in downtown in the Bronx. And here I am. And there were so many things going through my mind, including most of us really don't want to look completely like ridiculous. Like I don't really want to be laughed at. And you remember I called you. I said, I want to wear my Bad Academy shirt. You're the coolest person I know. That's why I wear it to hip hop. But I was worried. I was actually worried, and I tell the story, that I was going to wreck your brand. That I would single-handedly bring down your business by hip-hopping with Bad Academy on my shirt. And I just love that you were so wonderful. And you said, Tracy, there's bad as in badass, and then there's bad as in just doing something badly and still enjoying it. Said, you represent that shirt just fine. Off you go. Mm-hmm. So, and I did. It was like having a little bit of you with me. And I was like, okay, I can just model being bad at something, and this is it. This is me. But it isn't how I felt. I really wanted to be very, very good. And I knew that chance was quite low. But it brought up all kinds of stuff for me about visibility. I got frightened. I was like, I was scared. I actually felt my dreams were about, that I'm out there too much and they were going to kill me. And, all of these. Wow. Oh, it's very hip hop. Too much.
That's wild coming from you.
Too much. And I still haven't unpacked it.
It's wild. Because
but I think it's really affected my whole life and my whole career. I really do think this fear of being exceptional, this fear of being really different, this fear of being so visible and not being able to control the visibility. Because there's something about that. I couldn't, like when you're teaching and you're in front of a group of 300 people, there's 300 people, I can kind of control that, right? Like somebody shoots at me, I just dive under the desk or something. But this is like out in the world, uncontrolled visibility.
I see.
So it had something to do with power. I haven't figured it out. I've figured a lot of things, but not that one. And it's real fresh for me. And I'm almost scared to figure it out a little bit. So
that's probably a good thing, though, don't you think?
In what way?
Being scared of something probably means that it's something that needs attention.
I know.
You're like, don't tell me that. I don't need that right now.
It's true. It's true.
I know. You bring up a good point about shame. You're like, just like feeling. You didn't feel. Shame is not an emotion that comes to mind when I think about you, but I think we all feel shame. We don't talk about it. I think Brene Brown kind of brought that to light for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's so insidious in everything that we do, especially as women. Mm-hmm. I have the fear of looking stupid too. Like I don't want people to laugh at me. It brings up really like visceral, like childhood trauma of like being teased or any of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
That shame thing, I don't think I felt shame really since I was a little kid. And I was like walking around going, what's this really weird feeling that's stuck in my throat, halfway down into my heart, and then lodged in my stomach? Yeah. Like it's like this, it's really big. I'm like, what is that? You know how you go like, what's that on my shoulder? It's like, what is that?
Ew,
and I was
get
like,
it off.
Yeah, I was like, is this shame? About what?
What?
Yeah, about what? And it's like drawing attention to yourself unnecessarily, showing off, being too big for your britches. I can't tell you how many times as a kid I was told not to be too big. Once a week.
That's
you're
just
too big for your britches.
It's part of the female experience, honestly.
Yeah.
The experience of being a woman is do this, but not like that. Show up, but not too much.
Yes.
And it's like, where's the line?
Yes.
Like, well, how are we supposed to know? And so, like, people's insecurities about finances, I feel like is deeply rooted in that.
It is.
Like, I've run, I want to say probably 24 finance workshops since Bad Academy has existed. It still floors me how many people still sign up year after year, just so confused and so shameful about their knowledge around finance.
Yes.
But I always try to start our workshops by saying, like, how are you supposed to know if no one told you or no one taught you in the way that they teach other people?
It's also because it's not a stagnant piece of knowledge. So the other thing is people come into my empowered investing classes. I've had 10,000 at least. And some people come in 4, 5 times. And it's not uncommon for a woman to approach me at the end and say, wow, you've really changed the curriculum. This was really great. It's just, and I was like, I haven't changed this curriculum in 26 years. You've changed. You're listening to different pieces because you've grown.
Yes.
So now it's like a buffet of knowledge. And you got your salad part of your buffet. So now you've got that part, I said. And now you're looking for your protein. And so you were paying attention to the protein piece. When you come back the next time, you're going to be looking at all your vegetables and you're going to be trying to find some carbs. And I said, finally, the great one will be when you're ready for dessert. That's the fun one. But we're iterating. So it's not, we're not, in our situation, we're single, then we're partnered,
Yes.
then we're married, then we're unhappily married, then we're potentially divorced, then we remarry the same person, or we decide we're going to change genders and try maybe men didn't work for me, maybe women will. We change. There's a lot, and each time we iterate through, our financial circumstances reflect a lot of the new negotiations and the new circumstances. So it's not just like 1 + 1 is 2. I think it's very it's demeaning when I say it's that simple. It is not that simple.
No.
Because it's not 1 + 1 is 2. It's like 1 egg plus 1 egg is 2 eggs, but then 3 years later, it could be 1 apple plus an egg. And what does that equal? So it's an iterative process.
That reminds me of one of your points that you always make during our workshops, which is that there's no one that knows your financial situation better than yourself. So, regardless of like where you are in your life, which is that you're saying that we're very complex humans and beings, we change, people change, your situation changes, the way that you think about the world changes. This is what I think a lot of people get hung up on, which is that there is a secret formula. There is a secret step process for trying to be financially wealthy or successful. When in reality, it's really like you're in control of all of that. And I think it gets really muddy and noisy, especially with a lot of like the social media that we consume every day.
What is it? 68% now of people under 40 are getting their financial education from TikTok. And if you want to really know how bad that information is, just use a common AI tool like ChatGPT and ask it a financial question and be as smart as I am and listen to the answers that come back. It's wrong 70% of the time. And that's what people are going for because they can hide their shame, right? It's an anonymous process. So you go out there and even if the information's incorrect, at least you've hidden a little bit. Like I didn't mind doing hip hop as long as nobody saw me. Like it was, yeah. So there's a great power in owning our own situation first. And it's potentially the first impediment because then you have to look and say, well, what's real in my life right now? I am a this, I believe this, my strongest values are that. I always feel that if you can anchor yourself in yourself, that even if the information coming at you is unfamiliar or difficult to digest, that at least you still got you're like a tree. At least you've got your roots in the ground, right? So if somebody tries to put a tree house on you and you roll over this way, we get rid of the tree house and I can still right myself because my roots are in there pretty deeply. And that's not how finance is really taught. It's all taught from the outside in. Do this. Right. So I'll say at the beginning of a class, I'll say, I work through a 5-step process. That's the ownership of you, knowing what matters to you, and then us applying that knowledge to the mass array of financial options. And still people will say, I just want to know if I should have a REIT in my RSP. I'm like, I don't even know if you should have an RSP. Right. Like we have to back this this up. But there's a lot of money to be made from the outside in. There's a lot of influencers. There always has been, always some way to make money off of people's vulnerability and insecurities. And so the outside in is the thing that can be marketed easily. When I go into some of these online like educators, I'm just like, wow, like this is just not going to work. It's like feeding people a couple shots of tequila. It really feels good at the time. Like it feels like there's been a transformation. After your second shot of tequila, you have transformed. Is it real? Is it healthy?
Right.
Is it how I want to walk forward in life? Do I really speak Spanish as well as I think I do after two? Like it's not a real thing.
We've all been there.
So yeah, I'm really sympathetic also with the challenge of trying to find what's real out there.
Right. So if we're looking at this from the perspective of people that might be listening right now, I'm going to say most of them are women. We've been socialized and brought up in a way that financial education has not been a priority for us, or for our upbringing. So it's not something that we're like super in the know about. Then we have all this like social media content coming at us. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. Open a TFSA, put money into your RSP, all these things.
Yes.
It's just so loud.
Isn't it?
So
yes.
I'm going to turn you into an influencer at this point. I'm just kidding. But I do want you to tell us what you feel like the steps that you would take if someone were to be like, hey, Tracy, I don't even know where to start with this.
Yes. So I thought one of the most, at our last Wealth Academy, with the vast amount of knowledge and, psychological work we did. I mean, we were changing our energy forms. We were doing hip hop. We had panels that you were on. We had index charts, asset allocation. We had the triad, the behavioral. We had like so much stuff. And I'm always interested in what is the general feedback after a day like that. 200 people in a room. And two things were said to me. One was, oh, this is all great, except now how am I going to go home and talk to my spouse about this, or my kids, or my mom, but mostly spouse. So I'm like, okay, it's like you can get ready yourself, but then people are concerned about what the implications are going to be on the relationship. And then the second one was my real hard-ass Aunt Helen, who was a career woman, who used to make me march around going, if it's to be, it's up to me. Whenever I would act discouraged, she'd be like, okay, Tracy, let's go. And we would march around like from the time I was 7. And I'd have to go, even if I was like crying, my brother did this. If it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. Okay. And that was it.
You as a person makes way more sense now. That's like what you did when you were 7.
Yes. And then every time she would remind me of it. 17, 27, 37.
Hell yeah, Helen.
Just Love like it. That was it. And that's what some of the women came back. So the first thing that I would say to cut through the crap is when you walk around, if you can go, if it's to be, it's up to me, what happens for you? Does it make you feel powerful? Does it make you want to weep? Or do you start arguing with yourself? So as soon as you can march even a little bit and go, if it's to be, it's up to me, and you have just a little flutter of hope and optimism, I'd say, great. We have now just thrown open the doors. You're ready. You just have to know that it is up to you. No one else is going to save you. Not a podcast, not a brilliant financial advisor, not your best friend, not an inheritance, nothing. You will save yourself. You will be the one who gets you through your life the way you want to get through it. All you. So when you start taking back that agency, that to me is like the most useful, practical ideation of power. It's like, okay, if it's to be, it's up to me. Well, what do I want? That's my next question. Well, I want to be able to feed my kids. All right. Then the next thing that I always say is, let's take stock. Then what do you have? What don't you have? What do you owe? What do you own? What's your income? Like, what is the lay of the land today for you?
Right.
Can we get curious? Can you hold open enough compassion for you to look at the whole situation so that we at least know where we're starting from? 50% of people can't even go there.
Just because of they're fearful of it?
They're very fearful. And I kind of get it. I also don't believe that you necessarily have to step on a scale to be able to lose weight either. So if this hurts too much, then I'm like, okay, let's go back to if it's to be, it's up to me. And let's just talk about the things that you're like, there's so much pain in this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can we just talk about then the 2 or 3 things? Oh, I've got we've got a pension plan at the office, and I'm too scared to ask the HR department what my options are. There's another 50% of all people, men and women. They just don't even know. They know they have something, but they don't. All right, let's start there then. And we'll start where that person feels most comfortable. But at the end of the day, we have to understand where we're at.
Is it the net worth of a person?
Yeah, their net worth and their cash flow.
Right.
What's coming in and what's going out, both. Now, those 2 things really constitute your financial situation.
Right. So we're trying to understand what our net worth is.
Yes.
Which
assets.
is what you own versus minus what you owe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then, so first,
and no, you don't include cars or life insurance in there.
Right, of course.
Not of course.
Yeah, I guess not of course.
Ask it, and it's a legitimate question. I
Totally.
take net worth alive.
Yes.
Is sort of how I do it. I don't really look at if I died, there'd be $2 million. I'm like, we're either going to do your net worth alive or we're going to do your net worth dead.
I see.
Most of us are more valuable dead until we're about 40. So,
Love it.
But we probably best to do it alive.
Okay, so can you explain cash flow then?
And that's money in, money out.
Okay.
So, and that's where 98% of our psychological processes are coming to bear and what our relationship is with money. And that's how money, not necessarily how it comes in, but it can. So if you don't have, the skills or the confidence to ask for what you're worth in a job, if you don't have the skills or confidence to change careers into something that remunerates you for your greater gifts, or to change a situation where you're not honored or valued, like all of those things, they can come into play in your income coming in. But mostly from a numeric point of view, it's pretty clear. My daughter yesterday, she's a nurse, and she was really stressed out about money. And she's the best investor I know. And I really feel honored to have somebody I'm that intimate with go through the stages of life who had a mom like me. Because it tells me even optimally, she's been to 25 classes, right? Like she knows the facts, but she was really getting flooded. She was flooded with how much money kept going out and how hard she was working for the money coming in. And it was really stressing her out.
I really commiserate with her in this moment.
I know, eh?
It's so much.
I know. I really did too. And I was like, it's temporary. This is it. Remember, this is temporary. It feels like this in the short term. But she has me to be beside her and say, I'm going to walk you through. This is 6 rough months. Your first 6 to 12 months in a job, you're still paying off your debt from before. You're still paying off your, this is natural. I'm beside you. We can get through this. Not many people have somebody, this is natural. This is what a heroine does. She actually just looks at her feelings of overwhelm, says, I acknowledge you, I love you, and we're still moving forward, because if it's to be, it's up to me, and I have to put one foot in front of the other. And I think she's fortunate. I'm fortunate to have her as a daughter, but she's also fortunate because I'm like, I've gotcha. And if you can have somebody beside you who just says, I gotcha.
Right.
I gotcha. We're going to get through this.
It's so important.
Isn't it?
It's the only thing that matters, honestly. Community. Can you imagine not? I mean, it's so brutal when people don't have that as a resource. Oh. Like, how do you cope? It's
I know.
Wild.
They don't.
I know.
Don't
and it's
very
awful
well.
Because people are very unkind, I feel.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
One question I have is what makes her the most talented investor that you know?
You can't sit in investment classes from the time you're 5 years old and not have picked something up.
That's true. I'm just curious because
it's the
like,
same course. It's like she got what I said. There aren't many girls that are at the on the knee of their mommy who says, "And now, honey, I'm going to teach you about asset allocation." But she did.
yes.
She would be there with her Beanie Babies in Olympia, Washington, Saturday mornings, and there's my daughter because she didn't want to stay home with her brother, and she would be, and nobody cared. She was just there, her Beanie Babies and all her drawing equipment, and she would look up every now and again, and she would be paying attention to something. Then she'd go back to her beanies from 5, 6, 7, all the time I was building my business. She's been to every Wealth Academy.
So she's just like a sponge. She just like picked up everything.
It's even that it's just part of her. It's the world for her.
Right.
Just like the world for me when I was growing up was hold your stomach in, and that color looks pretty on you. Her world is, asset allocation, and you should be in 100% equities. And, me modeling how when she was 16 and had her first paycheck, and I sat with her at the bank when they wouldn't let her put her mutual fund or savings from scooping ice cream into 100% equity portfolio. And she grabbed an index chart and gave it to the person at the bank and said, this is me. I don't have any dependents. The volatility is just fine for me because, as you can see, there's a higher rate of probabilistic return. She talked like that. And she said, why wouldn't I? I don't have any. And he couldn't do it. He had to get the manager in. And I just kept my mouth quiet through the whole thing.
So proud.
Well, because it just showed me, of course, women could do money.
Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get to is that, okay, so you're saying your daughter is one of the most talented investors that you know. And what you're telling me is that the reason is because she has had a long amount of time to absorb that information from a young, not necessarily just from a young age, just a longer period of time, and then applied it to what she's doing. And then also had obviously the support of her mother, who's also obsessed with this stuff.
And a role model.
Right.
Because imagine, most of us don't know when we're growing up, we aren't around powerful women.
Sure.
We aren't around women that are successful.
Oh,
we aren't
yeah.
around women that are most of us aren't. So her whole world, and she always said, if anything ever happened to you, Mom, my biggest fear is having to break my way through all my aunties in the hospital waiting room who all think that they know best and are all type A firstborns who are going to be arguing with the doctors.
Dude, yeah, I get that.
But it's also, I think, because what I did was normalize financial success and just made it, this is the thing. It's what you do.
Yeah.
It's the normal thing.
Representation. Like as a daughter of immigrants growing up in the deep south of the U.S., I thought I had to be Connie Chung or, Michelle Kwan. Yes. I was like, I guess I'm an ice skater or I'm a news broadcaster.
Right.
Those are the only roles for me. That's all I saw.
Yes.
So it's the whole thing, like, how can you be something that you don't see?
Yes.
Representation is so important, because, and so like, if we're thinking about all of ourselves as like little girls, what did you see?
Yes.
Right. And then your world is either very small or it can be bigger.
Yes.
Which is like why it's so important to have these conversations out in the public, like show people and women, specifically little girls, like you can do so many different things.
It's so much easier if you can see somebody doing it. But I also believe that we can teach the capacity that you can also be weird. And one of the things, the biggest one, my close friend, Marlene, who my BFF, we grew up together from the time we were 11. And my mom, she was a second mother to her. And her sitting at the kitchen table with Marlene and I and saying, look, girls, if you look to the left of you and you look to the right of you and people are doing the same thing as you, somebody's on the wrong path. We're like, what do you mean? Each person has their own path. It's theirs. Yeah. So you should be doing it different than everybody else.
100%.
Like, what a radical. So my mom was already growing at that point.
I see.
That she could, I know, she was like, I'm giving the gift of, I know you're not going to see, including me, you're not going to see anybody who shows the possibilities to you. Right. But let me give you permission to allow those possibilities yourself.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to what we're talking about. So These are how our conversations always go. Tangent.
Edit.
Yeah, right. I know. Sorry, Amy.
Yeah. 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Can we order in dinner?
Honestly, like so many people watching right now have ADHD. You totally know what we're talking about. Okay, so we were talking about your net worth, cash flow, money in, money out.
Yes. Then to me, the next step is protection. Security, and that is having cash reserve. It's your handle an emergency fund, handle an opportunity fund, get yourself out of Dodge fund.
This is such an interesting topic because there are so many questions around this because every question is, what is the formula? How much? It's always the question.
Yes.
How do you respond to that?
So I've gone through a whole bunch of formulas, and none of them to me are as accurate as an individual saying to themselves, what are the real risks in my life? So if I'm a doctor, a family doctor in Vancouver, what is the risk of me losing my job and not being employed again? Pretty low. Okay, so my family physicians might only need 3 weeks of income, just enough to have a little vacation and find a locum that is less stressful than the place they came from. If I'm a film director, and that's what I do, and I live in Vancouver, I might need 18 to 24 months. If I'm supporting people, if I am the financial breadwinner in my circumstance, I obviously have a greater need for funds than if I'm just looking after myself. If I'm alone here, I'm the only person from my whole family that even lives in this country, I'm going to need more cash reserve than if, my sister, my grandma, and my aunt and uncle all live within 3 blocks, and any one of them have said that I can have their spare bedroom if necessary. So again, I want people to own their own situation, which is and I only want probabilities, not possibilities, because possibilities are endless. And that's one of the things that's happened, I believe, in the last 5 years is people have become very poor risk managers. We're assessing risk in the wrong places. So that's why I also like people to go back and own it for themselves. So you can work with an idea of 3 months, but if you know that you're employed, like if you're a nurse, honestly, your chances of being off work without pay for 3 months is really low, right? But my film people, they have a far more. You're a Netflix producer. You're feast and famine. So I just think we look at that and we're like, I kind of need this amount every month, and the kids need this amount. And I know the last time I was laid off, it was for 6 months. I think I should probably have 6 months. So I think it is a difficult thing to do, but it's way more precise, and I feel more secure. And to be honest, if you're in my office and I talk to you for 20 minutes, I already have a number in my head of what your cash reserve needs to be. It just comes to me, 18,000, 180,000, 6,000, 2,700. I can just see it by what you've told me your needs are and what your liabilities are and what your debt level is and how many people are counting on you and need you to feed them and house them.
How about their behaviors as people, their spending behaviors and all that kind of stuff? You feel like you can you factor that in as well?
Other people's?
Like when you're thinking about someone's how much they should have saved, that must, it also brings up the question of wealth. You can make a ton of money, but then, if your cash flow is that you're spending way more than you're making.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Do you have examples of that?
Yes.
Because
3 weeks ago, I had a family and they make $610,000. They spend $620,000 a year.
Again, on what?
Oh, it's easy. In this town, you give all your kids cars. You put them all in private school. Everybody now is on different types of therapy, drugs. Oh, where I live, the amount of vacations. Oh, we decided to go back to Japan for the second time because our youngest was everybody's taking their kids. We were lucky if we went, 30 minutes away to our friends and fished at the side of the river. That was what we did on our vacation.
100%. I never took vacation when I was a
and
kid.
they're expensive.
Yeah.
Like I personally have never traveled to Hawaii at Christmas because it makes me sick to see how much the airfares are when 2 weeks later I can get it for half the price.
Same,
I personally can't make myself do it. I don't need to be in Hawaii.
I just want to move. Yeah, I have the flexibility to just move Christmas to a different date.
Correct. So it's that.
So that's interesting. But then you also have pro bono clients, right?
I also have people that live on very little.
Right.
So I just also had an extremely, a very calm, humorous, emotionally grounded individual who does her work. She makes $35,000 a year. She is not in debt. And she manages to save $300 or $400 a year here and there, and that's her life. And I said, I'm thinking dividends are coming in from some long lost auntie or something. No. So I had her go through it. No, she was living now. She's privileged in Vancouver in that she's in a heritage building in a basement suite that will never be torn down. Like all these towers really isn't helping my clients. Sorry, but it's really not working very well. They're still unhoused for a long period of time while this stuff is going on. But she's in a heritage building, and her father was there before, and it's actually him on the lease. So she has a $925 rent. So she can do that.
Of here, guys.
Nevertheless, she doesn't take big trips. She works her way on her trips, trades what she does if she's going to go. And I just watch her and she laughs and she still goes out for dinner with people. And she's, just so healthy looking and obviously eats well. And I was like, wow. And these people can't live on over 600,000. And this person lives happily and comfortably on 35. So anybody that says that money is a concrete thing is just simply wrong. Like there's some things in there that are concrete, but there's a lot about what I believe I need to be happy.
Sufficiency.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we have net worth, cash flow, cash reserves, which you're saying is based on what your current situation
has to be individual.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then to me, you earn the right to go, okay, what are my goals? And you and I've talked about this before. I used to have these great workshops, the Oprah visioning board, and we would take over these rooms, and it was so much fun with paste, and everybody brought in magazines and things, and this is my ideal life, and we envision it. There is something about having a vision, but those things you're like high. Right? You're looking at yourself with the right hair and there you're standing beside, a sunny on a hacienda and your spouse is like gorgeous and, with really well-developed pecs and everything, right? And that all works great until you wake up the next morning and there's your spouse. They're still blubbery and you're not in a hacienda at all and you look at yourself and you're not that person. And to me the problem with that is that it's too wishful and it throws us into a position of insufficiency which has no power to it. Wanting to fix a problem because I am deficient in it is an alert. It's a start, but it will not propel you forward.
Do you feel like that's like discouraging to be like shooting so
yes, I
high
do.
And like you're just like
so I'm really clear. You get 3 goals, put them all down, and then you'll get them all. I'm totally. You have 34 things you want to do before you die. We'll get them all, Amanda. I promise you. But we have to do them in an order. We can only focus on so many things at a time. So pick your top 3.
Right.
Identify what it is, and how much it costs, and what the timeline is.
Right.
That's what we can focus on. No more than 3. It's better if we have 2, but 3. So that's why people come in and they're 28 and they're talking about retirement. I said, can we do this in the next set? like honestly, you got another 50 years before you're going to be able to retire in this world. So I'm sort of like, what is important? How then the next thing is then we establish our strategy. Then and only then do you ask me about REITs. Then and only then do we decide if it's a registered or a non-registered account. Then and only then do we decide, okay, debt seems to be the issue here, not investing. So let's map out a strategy for overcoming your debt and creating cash reserve. So now we're into the strategy piece. This is the roll up the sleeves. But look at all the things we did before we got to strategy. Whereas, if you go online, it's all strategy.
Strategy first.
And so it's like people saying, you should do hip hop. It'll make you feel better. Well, hip hop doesn't make everybody feel better. It makes me feel better. Walking might make you feel better. Pilates might make you feel better. We're all individual. We each have a combination lock that is us.
Right.
And we're going click, 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 3 here. Ooh, that worked. The 11 this way. Oh, didn't quite. My friend did 11. Worked for her. Let's try 12 for me. 12. No, 13. Oh, whoa. Almost opened. Like we're all,
right.
We have our own little combination of things that work for us.
That's what I think like people get wrong about self-care. It's like, it's such a buzzword, or was anyway. I feel like we've forgotten about it at this point. Self-care, who cares?
Yes.
But it is so personal.
Yes.
Just like finance, obviously.
Yes.
Where it's like, your thing is hip hop. That's my nightmare. I would never.
Not fun at all.
Yeah, exactly. But everyone was like, oh, self-care is like taking baths and like doing face masks. And I'm like, a lot of people don't like that.
Yeah. Right? Like me. That's not going to calm me down. A face mask?
No.
Sorry. That's my worst nightmare. Really.
Honestly.
Just bandage my mouth at the same time and watch me have a complete panic attack.
You're like not relaxing at all.
No.
And so like, we're all looking for these strategies to be like, oh, what's going to be the thing?
Right.
But then you're not like centering yourself before you figure out, okay, like how do I work with the fact that like I'm the center of this?
Yes.
So that's what I love about your process is that it's actually quite like, I don't know, is cerebral the wrong word? I don't know. It sounds like really hoity-toity, but I'm just saying like, I don't think a lot of financial advice or guidance generally starts with the individual as a person where you're at, meeting you where you're at, and then seeing where you can go.
Yes.
Which is a shame, to be honest.
It is, because it's the fastest way to go. It really is faster to do it on an individual basis.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's more successful, it's faster, it's more efficient, it's more hopeful and optimistic, and it creates power. And as soon as you have your first experience of like, I said I was going to save $30 this week, and I did it. We have our first affirmation of our own sufficiency. And then we just keep building, and that is like a muscle. Sufficiency is a muscle. We just keep. It's like learning. Like I've been doing a little bit of weights, and I've been trying also to do a chin up. And
I can't do one.
No, nobody can do one. And even I can't do one. But my trainer is training me not just in chin-ups. He's training me in the process of micro-progressions.
Right.
He really believes that that's going to be the key for somebody like me to continue to get more and more fit and strong. Is if I can just understand that everything can be achieved if I do it in small enough pieces. And I know that's in finance. You can start with $30. You can start with $1. You can start with just, if it's up to me. That's the thing I'm going to do today. I'm going to walk around and do that 10 times. And then when you talk about self-care, it's like, what is necessary? I talked to you about after that business meeting in November, and with all the things that were going on, I had as close to a breakdown as somebody of my maturity can have, which is like not full on because I've got enough tools, but it was bad. It was like 4:00 in the morning. I'm shaking. I'm downstairs. I'm trembling. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm losing it. And I'm lucky that I have a lot of tools, and I just went in those tools. I went on the first layer. I got my Eckhart Tolle. I'm listening to him. I'm doing my tapping. I'm listening to Tara Brach, right? I'm just going through all of those things, right? 4:30. My husband comes down at 7 in the morning. He says, "Are you okay?" I said, "I am not okay. I am really not okay." He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "You really just don't want to know. I'm just doing."
Just looked insane.
And then at about 8:30, after 4.5 hours, I could feel, okay, I got my nervous system back. I got it back, right? I could feel it. And I'm like, then, now I'm out of panic. So my executive functioning starts. I've been through this process before. Executive functioning starts. And then I went, how am I going to get through this? And I determined for me that meant a commitment to daily meditation. And this relates to money, because I made the commitment that even though it's a hard 30 minutes a day, I haven't missed since. Not one day. Not when I'm on an airplane, not when things are bad, not when I sleep in. I do 30 minutes a day, because it's not self-care. It is the rooting of my soul and my being into who I am and what's important, so that for the rest of the day, my filters are accurate. And when I do that, then it means I've got a better shot of my combination. And even my stock selecting, I'm not doing it from emotion, because I've settled everything down in the morning in that 30 minutes. I've remembered who I am. And I do affirmations too, like positive thoughts bring me benefits and advantages I enjoy. I am strong. I am courageous. I am kind. I go through 10 every morning, and I just remind myself. And maybe that sounds like I'm 11 years old, but what does it hurt to remind myself and affirm?
It actually works. It really does. Like, it seems so silly and you feel so stupid doing it, because you're like, what am I? Some kind of like animal / like robot, just like need to like hear these things. But honestly,
yeah.
Yes.
And it doesn't hurt for me to tell myself, because then it reminds me that I'm actually there for me.
Yeah.
Right? All day I'm there for me. I got me. I got me. And if I get somebody else in the course of the day, that's a bonus. And then that allows me to make decisions mindfully. And I've always said, if you can produce that state of mindfulness, first of all, to me, it is the very best place to achieve wealth from. It is the most fast and efficient place to achieve change from.
Right.
And it means I'm not going to abandon myself in the process.
Sure.
I'm not just going to do something that TikTok or Tracy or somebody said. I'm going to do the thing that resonates and aligns with who I am. And then, whoosh, the wind's at my back.
I'm so envious that you're able to sit down and do that every day, because I hate meditating.
Yes.
It's very uncomfortable for me. I can hardly sit still during a yoga class. But I think something I've learned at this age is that eventually I'm going to maybe get to that place where meditation feels right to me. I spent my entire life kind of writing things off. Like, for example, I just started painting again. I had painted so much when I was a child, loved art, was always doing art. And then I stopped and focused on career, focused on love, all those things. Just now, 20 years later, I'm starting to paint again, because I'm just ready for it and open to it.
Yes.
And it just, like you said, clicked into place. So that's like a timing thing. And just being patient with myself. And now I'm realizing, like, okay, so there's a little bit of like embarrassment that I have, that like I can't sit still for like freaking like 2 minutes to do a meditation. But now I kind of have the hope that like eventually I will get there. I just have to be patient with myself and understand that it's like I can do it eventually.
No, you're already doing it. So it's okay that for you, meditation is painting.
Yeah, that's another thing.
If you could, let's say we just add one element, which is that for 30 minutes of your painting, you concentrate on your breath while you're painting. That's it. You still get to paint, but all we're doing is we're just moving into the nervous system. Then that becomes the Amanda meditation. There are many people that walk through the forest and they breathe while they walk. And so this idea that meditation, that we strip off our shirts and we put something here and we have to cross our legs, which is very uncomfortable to me. And, flies come and buzz up our nose, but we can't slap at them. That for me is not going to fly. I mean, I'm okay for walking meditation. Mine's quite a dynamic meditation. I'm only really mentally quiet for 10 minutes of it.
Right.
The rest, I'm planting blessings. I'm trying to do as much healing love on people. I bless every single one of my clients, my staff, everybody that I'm working with today. This room I did for our podcast, your podcast that I'm here. I send light. So 5 or 10 minutes of it is me being a light worker that's what I do. But my body's completely relaxed, and I'm resonating at a higher frequency.
Yeah.
And that I try to hold that space. I can feel it in the day when I get too far away from it. So if it's painting, then I'm like, maybe that will always be yours, is painting. So I'm like, I don't believe in these regimented ideas that it has to be this way or that way for everybody.
Yeah. I mean,
I've watched some people paint. I have a friend who's a professional artist, and her body, her shoulders go down. You can almost see her heart chakra is just like completely wide open while she's doing it.
Yeah.
When she's in the flow of it. So
I've fallen into the same trap that I was just preaching about, which is that it's like very individual. It depends on you. And you're right, it is meditation for me. I can paint for literally 6 hours and not realize what time it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do like a lightning round of questions. Okay. So we're gonna try to keep these concise, even though
I will.
Except we like yap all the time. So we'll see.
Well, the great thing about this, you can cut it off. Like,
yeah, just cut it. Just cut it.
Yeah.
Make us sound smart.
Well, we are smart. It's just when everybody may not be interested in the same things we're interested in. But
okay, I have some questions here. We'll try to keep them as short as possible. What's been your favorite age?
Now, by a long shot.
How old?
I love it. I don't want to stop.
How old are you?
Oh, I'm 65.
65 is your favorite age.
So far.
Okay.
64 was before.
Why?
63. Oh my gosh. I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm the richest I've ever been. Once I got my hair figured out a couple months ago, which was
you're like, I'm living.
Yeah, really. I'm a great dancer. I have phenomenal friends.
That's great.
I'm just like so optimistic about the world and about the people that I love. And I just feel like we're in a time of great rebirth. And I know that birthing is extremely messy, but because I'm my age, it's okay for it to be. I understand what birthing looks like. There's lots of pus and blood. And I'm like, everybody who wants to have like this painless birth, it's not going to happen. But I'm optimistic because I think there's rebirth. So that's my perspective. And I want to be around for it. I want to be one of the people that's there to catch the baby.
I love that. What's the best part of being a woman in your industry?
Ugh.
All right, the next question is what's the worst? So if you wanted to say that one first.
The worst is that I have to pretend that everything's equal. And that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. It's the pretending. And then the best thing, probably I have an opportunity to have more impact because there's so few of us. So when we open our mouths and when we are really, really good at what we do, we're noticeable.
Right.
And then that gives, what did you call it? When you see somebody, you gave it a word, the image of somebody that you can identify. Connie Chung, what is she to you?
Representation.
Representation. There's a representation. So I have the possibility, if I wasn't so scared of whatever visibility thing that I now find out I'm mixed up about, to have more impact.
How do you handle your money? Like, what's your rule? I'm like quizzing you because I
like how? What do you mean? Like, I don't get it.
How do you manage your money?
How do I manage it?
Besides we're not talking about investments. I'm saying like day to day as like a normal human. Like you're like
I'm very mindful. We need new counters at home. So we've been fussing about this for 6 months. First of all, we don't get into a big, we're not impatient. So that's a mindfulness piece, which is that it's not life or death whether you get counters. And then we were going to move the counters, do all this, and then we were going in. And finally, I'm just like, I'd be happy with just an 8-inch lip and a couple of stools on the side and a countertop that didn't, hold our fingerprints. Like, that's how I am. I'm thoughtful. And the relationship that when my life changed around money was when I realized that I had to pick a relationship with it that I was good at. So if I'm not good at money being a relationship, then what relationship am I good at? And my friends may disagree with me, but I think I'm a great friend. So I decided, well, why don't I treat money the same way I treat my best friends? And then every time I came up with something, I'd be like, well, what would I do if Kirsten needed that? Or what would I do if Marl asked me that? And I just replaced them with money. And I'd go, well, I would wait before I answered. Or I would act really quickly. Or I would do this. And as soon as I started like making it, so now I have, my friends and money. And they're all my friends.
Right.
And that made it easy. That cut through all the crap.
Right.
All the stuff I'd been indoctrinated, all the stuff that the guys were saying, all the stuff about the markets. I'm like, money and I were friends.
I see. I always ask my guests how much money they make because I think that just having that transparency is really important for women. I mean, because you've always told me, like, you should talk to your friends about money. Like, you should talk to people in your community about money. So I'm going to ask you, but also, like, knowing that you don't have to necessarily tell everybody, but just kind of, like, ballpark would be nice.
Well, the ballpark is I make more money every year.
Okay.
And a lot of that is predicated on what the markets are doing. And I've made a couple of key decisions in the last 15 years. One was to go into independent. And for the first few years, I will tell you, we made no money, like none. We ate rice and beans.
Wait, you went into independent. What do you mean by that?
Independent wealth management. So I own Sophia Financial Group.
Oh, right.
I own it.
Right.
That's very different than working in a bank-owned firm, right? So I'm in the capital markets, but I own this. I own the computers. I own the desks. I have to pay. I'm negotiating the lease. I'm the one who did all of that so that I could get out from under all of those expectations and build a business that was authentic to me.
Sure.
And the cost to that was high.
Right.
And I remember at the 4-year mark is when we started taking a salary. Prior to that, all of our income went into the business.
Wow.
And then the second one was when Kamal retired. Instead of getting another partner, so I'm the sole owner now. So those are two big risks that both absolutely multiplied my ability.
But 4 years is so long. Like, I mean,
Most people won't do it. That's why I'm different.
You just won't give up.
I didn't. And Kamal was an amazing business partner. We looked at each other one day and we were really hungry. We'd both been on rice and beans for a while. And we're like, we looked and we are at this crossroads. And she looked at me and I looked at her and we said, all right, well, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down in blazes.
Yeah.
And that was just right at the point we were about. Most people give in and we're just like, no, we weren't scared of going on fire.
Right.
We'd already been, our toes were already toasty at that point anyways, right? So it's just like, so my legs get burned too. Literally, like it was that. And then everything, all the work, all the money we'd been putting into it, and then it turned around. But no, I don't know many people that will delay gratification to that degree.
Right.
But yeah, now I'm gratified.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you feel like capitalism can work? Like in terms of people's concerns with morality around it and just in general? I know this is a big question. This is hardly a lightning round, guys, but I just have this question for someone that works with money. I mean, like, I think it's demonized a lot because there are a lot of issues with the system and it marginalizes people. So I'm just curious what your perspective is on capitalism.
If money is the number one value that we have as a society, we will self-destruct. Money has no intrinsic value. It's nothing.
It's fake.
Right. As a marker of other values, using capitalism as the way of trade, but not at the exclusion of other values. Even in the course of my lifetime, there were other things other than being rich that mattered as a human being. If you were holy, it mattered. If you were a hard worker, it mattered. If you were a really good neighbor, it mattered. All of those things could gain you status. But now it's like, how much money do you make? And that's your status. So no, that with no other values attached to it, it's too empty.
Yes.
It'll go in on itself. But there's a lot of people who know that, but we're experimenting with it. We're experimenting with what if money's the only thing? What happens? And we'll watch it unfold. And in that case, I would just tell people it'd be best to have some. Yeah. While this experiment's going on, I've really ramped it up. Like in this period, this is no time to jump out of the system. Stay in the system, because when it implodes, we're going to need some to get us out.
I know, and that's why I'm so passionate about women's financial literacy, because I just want them to protect themselves.
Yes.
And just have options.
Yes.
Options.
Yes.
Whatever you want to do, it's fine.
I'm not telling you what to do.
No, just make sure you have options.
Correct.
And money buys you options.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the currency of independence.
That's right. And I do have so much, like, obvious, this is my world, my life. Women, I have such admiration for, because we I think are special in the way that we can walk that line of understanding, like, you know, the mechanism of capitalism, but also kind of hold like space for the other things that have value. I know not all women, obviously, but I think as a whole, you know, we all kind of understand that. And I think the more women that are financially literate, the more that might start to become it's mainstream.
It's the most crude form of diversity. It's by gender.
Yeah.
If we can't even get it by gender,
right?
What hope do we have for true inclusion? Right? I mean, this is just like, can we get the other 50% in?
Yes.
We can't even do that. Like, and then how am I supposed to get in all the multiple flavors of humanity if I can't even do this most crude inclusionary action?
I get a lot of like people pushing back and being like, well, like, you know, women haven't had it figured out. There's a lot of like bad women politicians and like like women like CEOs that have gone to jail and all this kind of stuff. And they just point that out to me. And I'm like, I feel like, and I stole this from you, we just want a shot to mess it up just as much as everybody else.
Yeah, that's my line. Just let me try.
Just let me try. I mean,
give me $1 billion and let me see how
Let's just see how we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, give a woman the job of president and just see how we do.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's really, I mean, that we just hold ourselves to such high standards. It's like, it's so tragic to me. It's like, you know, someone gives a woman a shot, okay? And then she messes up. Because we're human and we all mess up. And then they're like, hey, look, women can't do it. And that just like pisses me off, because it's not about that. It's about just making sure that we all have the opportunity to mess up and be bad at things. Like, it's what's fair.
Yes.
It's what actual equality looks like.
So that's also when you come down to values. And I think we're facing this in society at large, which is it. I think we used to kind of know what I knew what the values were growing up. Whether I liked them or not, I knew what the values were. You told the truth. You worked hard. Like, you helped out your neighbor. If somebody was in trouble, everybody in the hood was over there picking corn or looking after their kid or doing their garden. Like, it just, I understood. But now I think we've got this. We're in a values transition, and I think that's making things tricky. Which is, again, then I'll decide my own values.
Right.
And my values are about kindness and about integrity and about doing what's right for the world, as well as myself and the people that I care about, and even for the people I don't care about, doing what's right. So that's the thing I think we can always come back to, is at least make my own personal system an inclusive, diverse, you know, and as good a person as I can be. And it catches on.
Totally.
I think.
Okay, one more question before we head to the last segment of the podcast. What is the number one question you get about money from people?
Do I have enough?
Do I have enough? For what?
That's it. That's the next question.
For what?
Okay, and then I say, well, like, to live. And then what would you say?
What, as a person that was asking?
Yeah, we're going to switch roles.
Oh, like you're asking me?
Do I have enough? And you go, for what?
For what? To
right?
live?
And I say, to live.
How do you live?
Well, I feel like I'm always scrambling. And I'm always anxious and scrambling, and I just never feel like I have enough.
Right. Well, I know this 5-step program from this amazing woman named Tracy that I'm going to take you through.
There we go.
That ends in strategy.
There we go. There
Love
we go.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that is like, right? I've run so many workshops, over 350 in the time that I've been running Bad Academy. There's so many very specific questions that people ask, regardless of what we're teaching. Car mechanics, taxidermy, skateboarding, finance. And the answer is always, it depends.
I know, eh?
It's always, it depends. And I'm like, I know it's annoying and you just want an answer, but I just got to tell you, it starts with you.
Right.
I don't know your life. I don't know what you do.
Yes. So the other thing I think that isn't necessarily asked, but it is a question that lives in most people is, am I normal?
Yeah.
Is this normal?
Yeah.
Does anybody out there feel this way? Does anybody out there like cry when they open their bank statement? Am I the only one? Like, does anybody else like freak out the day before rent is due? Like, does anybody else just want to lock themselves in the bathroom sometimes and when their kids are screaming and just do nothing but like sit there and splash water on their face and cry? That's what I found as a child psychologist. At the root of every question that every parent asked me, even if it was about food or diapering or this or that, it was always, is my kid normal? Oh. And then I started, right? That's what everybody wants to know. Oh, is my kid normal? You know, the answer also kind of depends, right? It kind
of depends. What's normal to you?
Correct, right? Like in your family, is this normal? In your family, is that normal? What are the norms here for this? No, children that take off their clothes and jump off the roof at 3 a.m. wouldn't be a typical response to a dream, but you know, it's normal for them. And then at the root of that is, as a parent, as a human, am I normal? As soon as I look at people, and I've started doing this, you are in the top 7% of people of your age. Or I'll go, I'm pulling this stuff right out of my rectum. I'm just like, you are in the top 12% of all people who wear glasses and have white teeth. And you're like, everybody's like, I am? I said, yes, you are. Yeah. And it's a pretty good guess because I deal with so many thousands of people. And as soon as everybody, like, they just like, they chill. It's just like, because you started out, we're all secretly scared that it's just me. Oh, God. That I'm the only one suffering, that I'm the only one that's stressed, that I'm the only one who can't figure this out, that I'm the only one that's worried, that I'm the only one, you know, that dribbles when I pee, whatever it is. Like, I'm the only one. And then when we see that, and you talk about it, and this is what you've created with Bad Academy, you create a community of people that accept one another and who also are prepared to give back some truths. Like, no, most of us don't dribble that way when we pee. Doesn't mean that something's wrong, but you are the only person here at camp that does that. And we have noticed, and it's all okay with us. But then that person can make a decision like, oh, maybe I have a urinary tract infection. Maybe I have this. Maybe this is just who I am, and I've got to spend the rest of my life managing this. That's okay, done with love. Sure. But we're trying to figure out, and at the end, we just cannot live in isolation. And even money is not meant to be either earned or shared or any alone. We aren't meant. It's energy. It's an energy of sufficiency.
And we just don't talk. It's so taboo, obviously. We all know this. Like, I think like this episode will probably be one of the most listened to out of all of the season because like everyone's like, oh, money. Because I'm titling it Bad at Money, Bad at Cars, whatever. Like, Bad at Money, everyone's going to be like, I identify with this. But we don't talk to each other about our insecurities around it, our troubles with it.
Nope.
And so it never seems normal. And it's never normalized. And then, you know, then we have all this, like, shame and avoidance around it. And it's just this really bad cycle.
Yes.
That we all need to break free out of.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for answering all of my really long questions.
Well, thank you for holding space for questions to be asked and for us to share, you know, a conversation. Like, we're different generations and different perspectives, and for people to see that we're all in this together, and that is your magic, is your ability to create that space. And to anybody who's listening, like, we're all in this together. Like, I've got your back. You've got mine. We've got yours.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
and that's the space that's around you, Amanda, and your endeavors. So I
Thank
feel
you.
really privileged to be here.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Okay, just one more thing before you go. I'm so sorry. We've already talked for so long. Maybe Amy can cut this down, but I kind of don't want you to take any of it out, Amy. Maybe don't. I got to... So one of the segment that I'm going to transition to now is we get a listener to send in a question for the guest.
Yes.
And so I thought I picked this one out because I just felt like you'd have a lot to say about it.
Okay.
And I know we've been talking for a long time, so you can keep it short if you'd like. It says, I am a 26-year-old woman who's working in marketing in Vancouver, BC. I currently am engaged to marry a man, and I'm so excited. That being said, we finally had a conversation about money recently. I'm realizing that we have very different goals and money mindsets. I have never considered myself to be great with money, but I know I'm not the worst. I have a little bit of savings and some student debt that I'm on track to pay off in the next couple years. My fiance is frugal. He doesn't buy anything unless he absolutely needs to. And when we decided to get married, I asked him for a ring that I felt was within budget, but he said it was an impractical purchase and we can use that money for something in our future. Although I know where he's coming from, it gives me pause. Any advice as we navigate our future together?
Oh,
I know it's juicy. It's a juicy one. That's why I
posted. Oh my.
I know there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh my goodness. My. Well, kudos. Kudos to her for having a conversation. First of all, she's in the top 10% of 26-year-olds who are getting engaged because she
That's
held
a
a
fact.
conversation.
It's a Tracy fact. It's a Tracy fact.
No, that is amazing. So we're already on the win here, okay? And he answered back, and they uncovered where the differences were right now. Not in 5 years, and not because she kept her mouth shut all the way through, which is what women will typically do. I cannot tell you how many people go into marriage not even knowing if their partner's in debt or what their net worth is.
That is wild.
Most.
That's so scary to me.
Most.
I'm so scared for us.
Most. So I think that the job then is I would want to look at, I would back it out, and I would be looking at what are our promises to each other. What exactly is this relationship meant to achieve for one another? Like, really back it out. And sometimes, like, I've got a list of questions that I give to people and just figure out what is this? And, you're here to give me financial security. Whoa, really? And most young men, they've been indoctrinated that they're supposed to, but they don't want to anymore. That's a big difference in the new generation. The women like it and the men don't. Like when I'm with young people, the men are like, they want the women to pick up the check. They have no issues with it. It's the women who want the men to pick up the check. And that's a whole other podcast because it's in the micro decisions that we build a life.
Right.
It's not always the macro, it's the micro.
I'll have someone that is an expert in gender studies maybe come in and talk.
Yeah. So the first thing I would have them is like, why are we getting married? What is this supposed to achieve for each other?
Right.
And what are our rules of engagement?
Mm-hmm.
And we understand that. And financially, do we have any shared goals? If they are, what are they? Do we have any financial goals that we do not share with each other? And how are we going to handle each one of those things? It isn't going to be pretty either.
What if you have the same goals, but then your strategies are really different? Because what she's saying is that, like, she thinks she feels pretty good about the way that she handles her finances. It's not perfect, but it's fine. But he's very, like, meticulous, it seems, about wanting to save every penny, which is, like, I don't know, like, maybe where they kind of butt heads about how they're going to maybe even achieve their goals. Because maybe one of their goals is, like, we're going to buy a house eventually. But, like, maybe the strategy is off. Like, shouldn't the strategies be aligned as well?
Yeah. Then let's make sure, though, because if we have similar values and we have similar goals and we only have a strategy difference, that's really easy to mediate. I mean, my husband and I don't have a joint account.
Wow.
I know.
How long have you been married?
10 years.
Wow.
Yep. We know what's going on, but he manages his stuff from his. I manage my stuff from mine. We have a meeting at the end of the month. Who paid this? Blah, blah, blah. One person does it one month. I owe you $900. I owe you $2,000. Okay, that's it. job done, get up the next morning and start again. We both have very different ways of approaching things. So just at the end, we'll square up how we did it, how we got to things. Now, it gets really tough when one person's supporting the other.
Yes.
And that's a whole other podcast.
Sure.
And I really just prefer that it doesn't happen.
Just to be like completely dependent on another person.
Yep. It really, unless it's a short term and it's been well planned out. And even when one person stays home with the kids, and I've said, and they say we're an equal partnership, then I say, well, then Amanda, put half of your salary into Sarah's account. What do you mean? Well, you say you're complete and full financial partners,
yes,
and you make $4,000 this month. Give $2,000 to Sarah, and you keep $2,000.
Right.
No one says yes.
Yeah.
So it means it's not a partnership. The person who's making the money absolutely knows they're making the money, and they're the ones that have the power. So I just drop that in.
Interesting.
So for them, and they might even be worth grabbing we've got some beautiful mediators in this city. Yes. Just a 2-hour mediated conversation. I have a little team of romantic mediators. Like their job isn't to try to, they're not there to try to break you up. They are there to actually try to help you have facilitated communication. Their personalities are themselves as mediators, they want everybody to get along versus a more hard-ass negotiated. Like everybody's on a continuum, right?
Sure.
Then you may need a little help and have somebody just around to keep things clean, to offer some other things. But yes, the problem is if you have really different values. Like I want to enjoy life. Of course I want to take the kids to Japan. No, we have to save for retirement. We're not taking any trips until we have enough money for retirement.
Right.
I mean, that is almost irreconcilable because then the person who wants to take the trips ends up spending the money because they want to go with the person that they like. I've seen this. They pay for everything.
Yeah, this is too specific to not be real.
They pay for everything.
Sure.
That's fun. And the other person just keeps building up their net worth. Yeah. But it's okay because when you get divorced, it's still divided in half.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. Do you feel like prenups are always a good idea?
So I always want to say prenup is a U.S. term. It's a cohabitation agreement in Canada.
Yeah.
I know they say but it's not. It's a cohab. Yeah, everybody. And it doesn't have to be signed by a lawyer. But it's the same thing. What do we agree to in advance?
Right.
The law is pretty specific, but is there something different than what the law says? I did it for my daughter and her wife. They did one and then signed it, and I just have it under lock and key. It's not like a legal document. It is to remind them if in 20 years they're having a rough patch, we pull it out. Here are your promises that you made. And here's what you said. This was promises you made with full sign. So it just reminds people of what they promised a long time ago. And that's where I think it's really useful. Also, in doing it, it always uncovers things. Like we make assumptions. Like I'm making the assumption that you're not going to pull out like a big squeegee mop and throw water and soap at me at the end of this. Like that's my assumption. But what if you do? I'll be thrown off. Yeah, right. It's just not an assumption. We don't know. Assumptions are so blinding.
Yeah.
They're blinding. So that's why having these conversations, as difficult as they are, they always 100% of the time going through the process of a cohab, even if a lawyer's not involved, always brings up something that really should be and is most effectively, efficiently, and lovingly done before the marriage.
I have to say cohab
It's not for divorce.
is so much better than prenup. Prenup is like such a loaded word.
It is. It's about divorce, whereas a cohab is how are we going to live together? What are our promises? What are our legal obligations?
How on brand for Canada, honestly.
Yes. That's funny.
Thank you so much for being here, Tracy. It was such a pleasure. So many like amazing little nuggets of information and insights. I know you and I have done a lot of workshops together, so there's so much more that we could talk about and learn about finance we couldn't cover, and we talked for like an hour and a half. So that's all recorded, and I'll link a lot of that stuff on the website and on the show notes. But is there anything you wanted to say to our listeners before we sign off?
No, I'm just so happy to have been here, and just keep your eyes open for the next time the two of us stir up some trouble together.
Oh, we definitely will.
I think so.
Thank you so much. All right, stay bad. Bye.
Bye.